My husband confessed that he has been cheating on me with his cousin. Then he tried to manipulate me, too. I'm Sarah, 40, and he's David, 39. We've been together, married, for 15 years. That's a long time, isn't it? We have 2 beautiful children, Michael, 14, and Lily, 12. You know, I've always been so proud of my family. Everything seemed picture perfect. A cozy home, family dinners, weekend trips. Life felt ideal. I loved David more than anything, and I trusted him completely. Well, I used to trust him completely, but my 15-year marriage that I thought was perfect, it all crumbled in a single night. And this whole tragedy, it started with the death of someone I wasn't even close to. 3 weeks ago, Angie passed away. Angie was David's cousin, and frankly, I wasn't very close to her. She died in a sudden car accident. Ever since then, David has been like a ghost. He's been visibly depressed, much quieter, no longer his usual energetic self. I looked at him and felt so much pity. I just thought he was grieving the loss of a family member. I tried to comfort him, tried to pull him out of that black hole. I cooked his favorite meals, tried to talk, held him tight every night. I thought I was a good wife, always there for my husband when he was at his weakest. One evening, David suddenly told me, "Sarah, I've already told Mom that Michael and Lily will be spending the night at Grandma's." I was a little surprised, but I figured he wanted us to have some alone time to talk, for him to confide in me about his lingering sadness. He even prepared dinner himself, all my favorite dishes. However, the atmosphere in the house that night, it was eerily silent. Throughout the meal, David remained glum, and we didn't exchange a single word. After dinner, when the dishes were put away, David sat down opposite me. His eyes were blank, completely devoid of emotion. He took a deep breath, then looked directly into my eyes, his voice dry. "Sarah, you need to brace yourself for what I'm about to say." And then, with a lifeless expression, he told me he had been having an affair, and the name he mentioned was Angie. My entire world collapsed. My whole body froze. I just stared at David, trying to process the words he had just uttered. I thought I'd misheard. "Angie who, David? Are you talking about Angie, your cousin?" I stammered. He nodded, as if it were the most normal thing in the world, like he'd just said he'd taken out the trash. Then he started to tell me. He recounted it clearly, sparing no details, as if he were reading from a disgusting chronicle of his life. He said their damned relationship wasn't recent. It started when he was 16, and Angie was only 13. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. 13 years old? That horrific affair began when she was just a child. And the way he told it, it was as if it were Angie's fault. He said Angie was the one who seduced him. I couldn't believe my ears. A 13-year-old girl seducing a 16-year-old boy? It sounded ridiculous, but he kept talking and I couldn't stop listening. He said that relationship just continued until he started dating me. But that wasn't all. The real horror only began when he continued. He said that after we got married, things settled down for a while. I thought he'd finally seen the light, gotten out of that twisted mess. But no. Only about 4 years into our marriage, that ghost returned. This time he said Angie was the one who persuaded him to continue that sick game. I sat there feeling like someone was squeezing my throat. "You could say it went on for most of our 15-year marriage," he calmly stated. Unbelievable. For 15 years, I lived in a disgusting lie, pouring my life into raising our children and building a family, with a man carrying such a profoundly sick and repulsive secret. That secret continued until just 3 weeks ago when Angie died. Her death ended all that revulsion, but now it has opened up another hell for me. Then he ended with a sentence that still haunts me. He said Angie wasn't just a physical relationship, but also had deep meaning for him. He said he had a deep relationship with his cousin, with a little girl he exploited. I felt my stomach clench. And finally, he turned to look at me, his eyes still as blank as before, and dropped a bombshell. "You can do whatever you want with this marriage. I'll accept anything." My entire being, every single cell froze. I sat there looking at David. He still maintained that blank expression, as if he'd just finished reporting the weather. And me? I felt like a train was barreling through my head, roaring and crushing everything. I tried to say something, anything, but my throat was constricted, dry. I wanted to scream, to curse, to smash everything, but no sound could escape. The feeling at that moment, it was utterly disgusting, like something filthy and sordid had taken root throughout my life. Tears just streamed down, hot tears, flowing endlessly. I just cried. My whole body trembled uncontrollably like someone with a fever. How could I believe it? David, the man I loved, trusted more than anyone in the world. He was my husband, the father of my children. For the past 15 years, I had never seen any warning signs. No strange messages, no sneaky phone calls, no scent of another woman's perfume, no late nights without a valid reason. He was the epitome of a perfect man in my eyes. So there it was, my world, my trust, my life, all shattered. The man sitting in front of me then, I didn't recognize him anymore. He wasn't my David. He was a stranger, a monster who had deceived me, lived a lie and dragged me into his sick secret. I felt like I had just woken up from a long nightmare, only to realize it wasn't a nightmare, it was reality. And it was worse than any nightmare I had ever had. That night, I couldn't sleep for a second. My body lay motionless in bed, but my mind spun like a broken washing machine. Thousands of questions, tens of thousands of fragments swirled in my head. I kept trying to piece them together, hoping to find some explanation for the nightmare unfolding. Now, I recalled David's unusual absences, those sudden business trips he never elaborated on. Back then, I didn't think much of it. Looking back now, seeing the meaning behind it, I realized how foolish I was. I started to question Angie. The way David said she seduced him, it kept echoing in my head. How could that thing happen? There had to be something hidden beneath the surface. After the initial panic, I started searching. I wanted to find more evidence. I needed something, anything to confirm I wasn't going crazy. I remembered David had an old tablet he no longer used, tucked away in his nightstand drawer. And I found it. A series of old messages, emails, and even screenshots of conversations between David and Angie. My hands trembled as I read every line, every word. Angie, the one David said had seduced him, wasn't so simple. She wasn't just the other woman, she was a victim and also a viper. There were messages where Angie threatened to expose everything and reveal David's past depraved acts if he didn't meet her demands. She constantly demanded money, expensive gifts, secret getaways. She was a parasite. David had to spend a lot of money from our joint savings, meant for our children's future, to silence her. I had noticed those amounts, but David's explanations always sounded plausible. He managed our finances, so I didn't scrutinize them much, because I trusted him completely. That blind trust is what led me to live in a marriage where my husband not only cheated on me with his cousin, but also allowed her to bleed our family dry. The disgust in me had reached its peak. In that chaotic mess, another thought flashed through my mind. I recalled previous times when I mentioned Angie, my mother-in-law Nora would often show strange reactions. It seems she always tried to avoid topics about Angie, even at her funeral. I just thought she didn't like Angie much. But now, I had to suspect everything, even though she was someone I trusted like my own mother. I considered a terrifying possibility. She knew something about this. The next morning, I called Nora directly and told her to come to the house immediately. I had something very important to say. My voice must have been very cold because she arrived instantly without asking any questions. When Nora walked in and saw me, she looked worried. She asked questions, trying to reach out and touch me, but I pulled away. I just looked straight into her eyes and placed the tablet with those disgusting messages on the table. "Mom, look at this." Nora picked it up and read. Her eyes widened, her complexion shifting from worried to ashen, then bright red. She tried to deny it. "What is this, Sarah? I don't understand." But I wouldn't let her deny it. I was too tired of lies. "Don't pretend anymore, Mom. I know you know. How long have you known about all of this?" My voice rang with such anger that I didn't even recognize it as my own. Nora collapsed onto the chair, burying her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook uncontrollably. And then she confessed. She said she had known about this disgusting relationship for years. My heart felt squeezed tight. Not only had David betrayed me, but my mother-in-law had also been complicit all these years. She tried to justify it by saying she did it to protect our family, to protect David from humiliation, to avoid ruining our grandchildren's lives. She said she had tried to reason with David, begged her precious son to end things with Angie. But then, when nothing changed, she just turned a blind eye, letting her son continue as he pleased, living a depraved life and letting that abomination engulf my family. Once again, I was pushed to the sidelines, an outsider in my own life's tragedy. An entire web of lies had been spun to conceal their guilt, and I was the puppet they'd been pulling the strings on for so many years. I was completely alone. After all those lies, I needed someone to truly stand by me, to look at this raw truth with me without judgment, and the first person I thought of was Emily. Emily has been my best friend since college, a strong and incredibly pragmatic woman. I called her. My voice must have sounded terrible because as soon as she picked up, she immediately asked what was wrong. I didn't say much, just that something earth-shattering had happened, but she needed to come to my house for me to tell her. When Emily arrived, I told her everything, from beginning to end, every single detail, leaving nothing out. As I spoke, I watched her eyes widen, her jaw drop, transitioning from worried to utterly shocked, and then to extreme indignation. She kept shaking her head and saying she couldn't believe it. At one point, she suddenly hugged me tightly, tears streaming down her face, and kept apologizing to me repeatedly, even though she hadn't done anything wrong. It was incredibly precious to feel someone understand and empathize with my pain. She said, "Sarah, get a divorce, immediately." Yes, this marriage was dead. Trust had shattered, and I could no longer live with that monster. I decided I had to protect my children first. I had to take them away. I called my mother and asked her to look after the two kids. When she saw me, even though she didn't know what was going on, she was very alarmed. I just told her it was serious, but that I would explain later. Lily was still young, innocent, and oblivious. But Michael, he kept looking at me with a questioning gaze, as if he sensed something was wrong. At that moment, I just tried to stay calm and held them tight. When I returned and walked into the house, David looked at me with what seemed like remorse, but I knew it was just a facade. I got straight to the point. I threw all the evidence I'd found at him. The messages, the bills, Nora's confession. "What else do you have to say, David? How much longer were you going to deceive me?" He initially hung his head, seemingly genuinely remorseful. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm truly sorry." But just a moment later, he suddenly looked up, staring at me with a chillingly brazen and cold gaze. "You're overreacting, Sarah. I've lost Angie. I'm in a lot of pain. Can't you see how miserable I am? This happened a long time ago, Sarah. You have to understand, it was just a youthful mistake." And then it just continued. "You can't keep digging up the past." I was stunned by the man I once called my husband. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. A youthful mistake that lasted 15 years into our marriage? He didn't bother to listen, just continued rambling. "You don't have siblings, so you don't understand family bonds. Angie was the only family member who truly understood me. You're an outsider. You'll never understand the connection between Angie and me." He even dared to use the word family to justify his sick behavior. "You're being selfish, Sarah. You're destroying our family over a past mistake. Have you thought about Michael and Lily? Do you want them to grow up without a father?" Those two words, selfish, felt like a splash of cold water to my face. Me? Selfish? How dare he blame me? And then to bring up our children's happiness as if he were some noble, virtuous person. I felt like I was truly losing my mind. I had nothing left to say to him. David had started his manipulative tactics, and my mother-in-law clearly sided with her son. I knew I couldn't handle this mess alone. I needed a professional, someone who understood the law and could help me fight them. After hearing my story, Emily immediately introduced me to Mr. Harrison, a lawyer she described as tough as nails and sharp as a razor. I scheduled a meeting with Mr. Harrison for the very next morning. He was a middle-aged man with a stern appearance but very calm eyes. Looking at him, I felt a little more at ease. I sat down, took a deep breath, and began to recount the entire story. I didn't leave out a single detail, no matter how horrific or unbelievable I knew it was, because I needed him to understand everything. Mr. Harrison listened very attentively. Occasionally, he would jot down a few notes in his pad. When I got to the part where Angie demanded money and threatened David, he paused, looking at me with a serious gaze. "Miss Sarah, do you still have that evidence?" "Yes," I replied immediately. "I took screenshots of everything, and the invoices too." He nodded. "Good, very good." Then he began to talk about things that I, an ordinary woman, could never have known. He spoke about the incestuous element and, more seriously, about the relationship starting when Angie was a minor. "This isn't just a typical affair, Miss Sarah," he said. "This could be the basis for far more serious legal charges against David." My heart pounded. Legal charges? I had never thought about that. I just wanted to get away from him, to escape this sordid darkness. Mr. Harrison delved even deeper. He asked me to provide all our joint bank account and credit card information, and within a few days, he uncovered another shocking truth. David hadn't just spent money on Angie from our joint account, he also had a secret slush fund, a hidden account I'd never known about. From that account, a significant amount of money had been withdrawn periodically for years. It seems David used this to silence Angie or provide for her more discreetly, Mr. Harrison explained. I was numbed. He'd even actively drained our family's money to support her. Mr. Harrison looked at me, his gaze firm. "So, Miss Sarah, what do you want? We can fight for everything." I didn't have to think twice. I want a divorce, I want to get away from David, and I want full custody of the children. Michael and Lily cannot grow up with a father like that. I also want to keep the house, and I want him to pay for what he's done. I want the majority of our assets to compensate for the emotional and financial damage I've endured all these years. Mr. Harrison nodded. "All right, we'll do that. But there's one thing you need to remember, Miss Sarah. During this phase, don't say anything about the true reason for the divorce to David. Let everything follow the proper legal process. The more discreet we are, the more advantageous it will be for us." So I was ready. This fight wouldn't be easy, I knew that, but I wouldn't back down. I would fight for myself and for the future of my children. With Mr. Harrison's help, I felt a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. But then the biggest burden emerged. Michael and Lily, my children. They're too young to comprehend this disgusting truth. My mother, their grandmother, has repeatedly advised me not to tell them the truth, especially Lily. She's too young. She said to let her keep believing in good things. I know my mom is right, at least about Lily. She's still so innocent. I don't want to destroy her childhood with this horrible truth. But Michael is different. He's 14. I've noticed strange behaviors in him. I don't know when it started, but he's become quieter, less talkative with both David and me. Michael has also visibly started avoiding David. Whenever David tries to talk to him or hug him, Michael finds a way to pull away. Many times I've seen him sitting alone in his room with a distant look in his eyes, and then he'd stare at me as if wanting to say something, but then he'd stop. I just thought it was because he was entering his rebellious phase. But now, thinking it through, my head immediately spun. No way! Could he possibly know? Or at least suspect? The feeling that my child's mind has been tainted is even more painful than my own betrayal. My little boy has had to carry a terrible secret burden, something even an adult like me can barely accept. He's lived in this lie for so many years, right in his own home, and I had no idea. I truly failed as a mother. I agonize wondering if I should tell Michael the whole truth. Is he strong enough to face it, or should I continue to keep it secret, letting him believe that his parents are divorcing for other reasons? Then I look at Lily, my 12-year-old, innocently playing with her dolls. I can't imagine what my children's faces would look like if they knew the truth. How can I protect their souls when their world has just crumbled in the most horrific way? While I struggled internally, Mr. Harrison began the paperwork. Things moved quickly, at least at first. David, just as he'd told me that night, agreed to almost all my demands: custody of the children, the house, and the majority of our assets. I thought at least there would be some peace, but I was terribly wrong. His agreement was one thing, his willingness to let go was another. As soon as everything started to fall into place, David began his games. He started calling and texting me, not to discuss the divorce proceedings, but to lament his suffering, claiming he was lonely, that he missed me and the kids, that we were everything to him after losing Angie. It was truly unimaginable. He was using Angie's death to try and manipulate me again. He even tried to visit the children at my mother's house. And every time he came, he acted utterly miserable, with a gloomy face and a weak voice. He'd hug Lily tightly, whispering affectionate words, as if wanting her to feel sorry for him. I knew he was trying to sow pity in our children's minds, hoping they'd come back and ask me why I was treating their father so badly. He even texted me saying that he and I were family, and that we could get through this together. David's audaciousness at this point had exceeded all my limits. He wasn't just a traitor, he was a manipulative devil, stopping at nothing to achieve his goals. The whole divorce process felt like a drawn-out, utterly exhausting battle. I thought I'd collapse at any moment. The phone calls with the lawyer, the meetings with Mr. Harrison to sign papers, and then hearing reports of David's brazenness through a third party. It wore me down terribly, but I didn't give up. I gritted my teeth and endured, because I knew I was fighting for the truth, for justice, and most importantly, for my children. And then that day finally came. The divorce decree was issued. I sat in Mr. Harrison's law office, my heart pounding. He announced, "I received full custody of the children, our house, and a significant portion of our assets, including the money David had secretly spent on Angie all those years. Justice had been served, at least financially and legally." When I heard those words, a tremendous sense of relief flooded my chest. It was like a heavy stone that had been pressing on me for the past 15 years was finally lifted. I was free from David, free from that incestuous ghost, free from the lies, and free from his manipulation. I had won. But then, immediately after that feeling of liberation, came a chilling emptiness. It wasn't a complete joy, but a deep sadness that permeated every corner of my soul. I had dedicated my youth, all my trust and love to a man who was completely different from what I had imagined. My marriage was over. The family I had built with all my heart was no longer whole. The pain of betrayal, of years of deception, still lingered, smoldering within me. I looked out the office window and saw the sunlight shining through. Life goes on. I had survived a horrific storm, but the scars would definitely remain forever. This wasn't a fairy tale ending. But even if the ending was tragic, it was a new beginning, a beginning I could seize on my own, no longer deceived or manipulated by anyone. I had reclaimed my freedom, though at an incredibly high price. After the divorce, the feeling of emptiness and the pain of betrayal still lingered, smoldering within me. I knew I needed professional help. I decided to go to therapy. It felt a bit awkward at first, but then I realized it was one of the smartest decisions I've ever made. My therapist is a wonderful woman. She helped me step by step, untangling each knot in my heart. I learned so much. She taught me about forgiving myself for being too trusting, for not recognizing the signs, forgiving myself so I could release the unwarranted burden of guilt. I also learned to rebuild trust in myself, to believe that I deserve happiness, deserve true love. And most importantly, she helped me identify the signs of manipulation so I would never fall into that trap again. Fortunately, I had wonderful women by my side. Emily remained my close friend, always ready to listen to me. And my mother. She helped me immensely with caring for the children, and was also my companion during the darkest days. Without them, I don't know how I would have gotten through it. Regarding Angie's death, after the divorce was finalized, I no longer wanted to delve deeper. Although Mr. Harrison mentioned the possibility of a more in-depth investigation, I was too exhausted. Angie was dead, and she would never be able to harm me or my family again. That disgusting secret had been exposed, and I had reclaimed my life. I decided to accept that she was gone and consider it the end of a painful chapter. Now I'm focusing on rebuilding my life. I dedicate all my free time to Michael and Lily. I'm trying to rebuild my relationship with my children on a foundation of trust and transparency. I want them to know that no matter what happens, Mom is always here, loving and protecting them unconditionally. There will be days when I feel empty, nights when I can't sleep, and moments when I ask myself, why me? But I look forward. I've seen the light at the end of the tunnel. This scar, this deep wound, I know it will always be there. It will remind me of what happened, of the horrific betrayal I faced. But I won't let it define me. I've learned invaluable lessons about trust, about betrayal, and about how to get back up after being knocked down. Thank you for listening to today's story from the Guilty Notes channel. If this story resonated with you, please like and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other emotional, real-life stories and valuable lessons. See you in the next video.